I head out for an evening session playing 1-3 at Spades Poker House in Houston, Texas. I buy in for $300. The game is playing a little bit larger and I see some familiar faces. Things are not going well to start, and to pretty much sum that up, let's start with this hand. Ace Jack offsuit, I'm under the gun. Totally fine to raise from here. I make it $20, although I would prefer opening larger, especially in a loose calling station game. I get 2 callers and the button goes all in for $34. The small blind calls 34 and I cannot re-raise because his bet is not big enough. I call, as do the 2 other players. 5 ways to a flop with 1 all in, that is 10-10-9 with 2 spades. Small blind checks. If I were heads up, sometimes I would continuation bet, but not with 3 active players still in the hand. I check, the cutoff bet's $60, the small blind calls. I look at my cards pretending I'm going to do something, knowing full well I'm done with this hand. Moving on, maybe that wasn't a good example. Let's try this hand. We're sitting 6-handed, a player under the gun. Let's call him our resident villain for the night. Raises to $10. Everyone folds. In the small blind, I have Jack-9 suited and make the call. The big blind folds, and villain asked if I check dark. I said no, but I will. I check dark, which is not a big deal as I don't have too many donk leads here. The villain now bets $25 in the dark, and the flop is 8 of clubs, king of hearts, 10 of clubs. That's an open-ended straight flush draw. I could check raise this and possibly take it down right here, but with his blind aggression, if I hit anything, I'm going to get paid. So I elect to just call, going for the potential max value. I check again prior to the turn card, and villain bets $30 before the turn again. The turn is not one for us. It is the ace of spades. It's already on me since he bet $30, and once again, I could raise this turn, making it very difficult for him to call with anything that isn't very strong. But I'm sticking with my plan and just call. The river is the 5 of spades. There is probably some merit or percentage of the time I can lead this river for large, but I've played the hand so passively, I just check. He checks back, showing us queen 5 of hearts. And this is why you raise your big draws, kids. I played this hand about as bad as I could. After bleeding more chips, I decided to get it all in against the villain in Omaha with ace queen 6-8. I know what you're thinking, this is a trash hand, but if I know my villain, his hand is worse. The decision is decided for 1 flop with 2 turns and 2 rivers. Before the flop, the villain exposes 7 deuce of clubs, and for fun, I expose 6-8. The flop is queen 3-4 with 2 clubs. I expose my queen now and villain says no good. I'm confused. The first turn is a king of hearts and the river is a 5 of hearts, and now he shows king jack. So I was correctly in front pre-flop and on the flop. Let's go to the second run out. The turn is the 10 of spades and the river is the king of spades, and I lose both. I feel like my reaction is appropriate. And of course we could have found a better spot to get it in with, but nonetheless we are moving on. We buy in for $450 now, in for $750. Let's turn this night around. There is a raise from under the gun to $13. In middle position, I 3-bet to $40 with ace king. Our villain cold calls $40, and it's starting to feel like our villain is out to get us. Under the gun calls 3 ways to a flop that is ace king deuce with 2 spades. Under the gun checks. Now multi-way against these 2 players, I'm going to continue smaller because they like to see cards. I want to get value from all of their holdings like worse aces and kings, and their flush draws or inside straight draws. I bet $40. Of course our villain calls. Under the gun now folds, heads up to the turn, that is absolute gin, the king of clubs. First act, now I want him to hit his draw or catch up or even attempt to bluff, so I check. And our villain falls for the bait and bets $75. I think this is an interesting sizing. I think if he bets $125 or more, I can raise and just get it in here, as he is not likely to fold for $200 more. But with this sizing, he can still get away if I jam. So I just lay the trap and call. The river is the 10 of hearts. Not a card I wanted to see, as it only brings in the queen jack straight draw. The 10 of spades would have been a much better card to bring in the flush. To bet or check is now the question. My stack size is less than pot, so my bet would just be to go all in, and I'm probably only getting called here by a straight or another king, which of course would bet this river. I might get a hero call from an ace. I think it's better in this given scenario with this river against this player to check and let him bluff. That's what I should have done. but I actually bet
200.
$200, and the villain insta-folds. I don't really think either play is terrible, but I think I should have continued telling the weak story and checked river. Pretty quickly, we get back to about even. I bleed a few chips. This hand, there is a straddle on the button and one call. I have pocket nines under the gun +1. I raise the $30, and guess who calls? The villain. I have played with him before on several occasions. At this point, I'm starting to feel like he is solely out to just get me because he is calling every one of my raises, but not everyone else's. And I'm a little annoyed.
Gee, Christmas, dude. What are you doing down there?
The flop comes ace-3-8 rainbow. I check it over to my friend. He bets $15 and I call. The turn is the 5 of clubs. I check. He bets $15 again. There's only one card on the board that beats me. Raising here is just turning my hand that has showdown value into a bluff, so I call. The river is the 7 of diamonds. All things considered, this is a pretty good run out. I check, and he checks back, showing us ace-deuce offsuit. Clearly, he's trying to snap me off at this point, so I playfully say,
Be a lot of check raises in here nowadays.
so as if we were in a movie. I mean, I guess I kind of am. I am recording this and then editing it to tell a story. But anyways, notice the button move. The very next hand, I am under the gun and look down at pocket queens, and I limp. But if I know my opponent, that's right, villain raises to $25. Thank you. I know what I'm doing here. The small blind calls on me. Oh, I didn't notice. I fling out $100. The old limp re-raise. And the villain, with complete disregard for his money or my words of warning in the last hand, now decides to jam all in for $571. Now the small blind puts the remainder of his stack, $81, in the middle. Is the villain messing with us? You think this is a cooler? Would villain jam all in here with tens or jacks? Considering his only goal is to crush my soul, I can't fold this to him. So I make the call. The main pot's $246. Our side pot's $980 for a total pot of $1,226. None of my opponents show their cards, and it's one time for all the money. Let's hope for a, well, that was easy. Flop 'em dead one time. I expose my hand. The turn is a 10, the river is a 6, and our villain had ace-king offsuit. I kind of expected that, and the small blind had jack-9. Wow. Oh well, boys, maybe next time. We scoop this massive pot, and we are headed back in the right direction. But just one hand later, in the small blind, I do some dumb stuff while playing Omaha. Who would have thunk it? Dealt king 5, 6, 7 with king 7 of spades. After a few limps, I throw in $2, why not? And the big blind, aka our villain, says pot for $25. There are 2 calls, and now in the worst position, getting close to 4-1, I stupidly make the call. I'm thinking maybe I'm on a rush. The flop is queen of spades, 3 of spades, 7 of clubs. I flop a less than stellar combo draw, and I check. The villain bets pot of $110. The 2 other players fold, and I decide to make the call here as villain could be steaming off some chips. Against a hand like aces, we have some equity. Unless, of course, he has ace-high spades, and then we have not so good equity. The turn comes the jack of clubs, not the card I was looking for, so I check, and now the villain decides to check back. So free river card coming, the 8 of clubs, and I brick. I check, and he oddly checks back. And I'm surprised when he checks back, showing us a flopped set of 7s. I shouldn't even completed this hand in the small blind, and this is an all-around terrible play for Omaha, which I am going to vow not to play anymore or show any more Omaha hands until I study and get much better, at least with opening ranges and starting hands. Quickly, I want to say one of the coolest things ever since starting the vlog happened to me. When I went to the cage earlier to rebuy, the gentleman in front of me was a subscriber, and he paid me many compliments. So shout out to John Smith, aka JW as they call him. Great guy. He even came over to the table I was at to play, and we had some great conversation. Always appreciate you and look forward to seeing you again in the future, brother. Back to the action. There's a straddle of $6 on the button, and I'm first to act. I raise to $33. I get one caller. Can you guess who it was? That's right, it's the villain. Oh yeah, I have ace queen offsuit. Heads up to the flop, that is ace 7-9 rainbow. Flopping top pair, I want to get value from any of his middle pairs or weak aces, and I bet $50. He instantly calls. The turn is the 8 of diamonds, and now I bet $55 because I don't want to scare him off too much. And once again, he snap calls. The river is a meaningless 2 of spades, and for some odd reason I check. I'm hoping he would bluff at it, and if I bet here and he raises, I almost have to fold because I really only beat a bluff. But in hindsight, it's kind of a scared play. I should have just bet this river. I don't want to get blown off my hand by a raise, so I guess I got a little worried and checked. But this cost me possibly precious value because he checks back and I win, of course. So in this next hand, I get king-queen suited under the gun +1. I raise to $20 and get 2 callers, JW who's to my left and the villain, of course. Or so I think I get 2 callers. I actually get 3, but I didn't even see this guy limp and then call my raise. So when the flop comes queen 7 deuce rainbow, which is a really great board for my hand by the way, and under the gun player checks, I'm confused.
Who checked? Oh.
Yep, that's me realizing there's another player in the hand. Quickly calculating the pot is now $80. I could go half pot or less here because this board is very dry. It's a little harder for my opponents to have hands willing to call, but with 3 other players, I'm mostly targeting weaker queen X here that I know will call larger bets because it's top pair. So I bet $50, and surprisingly, I get the villain and everyone to fold. In this next hand, our villain straddles to $6 on the button. There's 1 caller, and in the cutoff, I raise to $25 with king jack suited. Of course, the villain calls, the limper folds, the heads up battle ensues, and we go to a deuce 9-10 flop with 2 hearts. I flop 2 overcards and an inside straight draw. With the betting lead here, I'm going to c-bet as a lot of turns improve us, and we can even represent the flush if it comes in. And I want to fold out any random ace highs that might want to float the flop. I bet $35, but our villain min clicks us to $70, which is a very interesting play. But at this point, it's too juicy to fold, so I make the call. The turn comes the 6 of spades, and I decide to check. But in hindsight, I think there could be some merit to donk leading here. That's a convo for another time. The villain bets $115, and although this whole situation seems like a complete bluff, I can't do anything about it but fold. Now let's get into the most interesting hand of the night. There are 2 limpers on the button. I look down at ace-9 offsuit. Personally, I would prefer to have ace-deuce through ace-5 suited or ace-10 plus suited, but I think ace-9 offsuit is too nitty to outright fold. I have position on all players and have not been 3-bet all night, making this a profitable open. I raise to $23. Shocker, in the big blind, the villain calls, as do the 2 limpers. 4 ways we go to a flop that is 9-8-3 rainbow. Great flop. The big blind, who is our villain, does something he hasn't done all night and donk leads for $80. The other 2 players fold. I have played with this villain in the past, and despite what you have seen tonight, he is a thinking player. Now, first question, would this villain ever do this with a strong value hand like a set or 2 pair? My read is no. He has 3 players left to act behind him, including me, the fairly tight aggressive pre-flop raiser. So what would he do this with? Maybe 6s or 7s, maybe king 9, more likely a draw, and since there are no flush draws, it would be a straight draw, which include value-ish bluffs like 6-7, jack-10, and 7-10, or even pairs with a backdoor draw like 7-8, 7-9, 8-10, 9-10, jack-8, jack-9, queen-9, which I block some of those. If he is really that wide, he could even throw in 5-6, 6-9, 6-8, 6-10, jack-7, or queen-jack. If this is his complete range, I beat a lot of those holdings. So I need to go for value or charge him and charge this range. I decide to raise to $225. With the way I've played the hand, my range is uncapped, meaning I could have all the very strong value hands, overpair sets, and 2 pairs. So if I get re-raised now, then I was wrong, and he has a much stronger hand like 2-pair or a set. He actually takes a minute to think, ultimately deciding to call. The turn is the Jack of Diamonds, and he quickly shoves all in for $287. So quickly, if we do some combinations calculating and his previous range is that wide, what we beat versus what we don't beat, I'm still ahead of a decent amount of the time. I am beating more of his hands than I am losing to. The pot is currently $830. I have to call 287 to win 1,117. I have to win 25.6% of the time to break even or make this call profitable. What I failed to think about in-game was, does he ever do this turn all-in jam if the turn card doesn't improve his hand in any way? If he doesn't, then I have way less hands I beat. It's a very tough spot. I'm very deep in the tank. But ultimately, I trust my process. I hit the call button. The river, 4 of hearts. Villain says your overpair is good. I don't have an overpair. Villain shows 7 of diamonds, Jack of spades. I'm tilted. I cut my massage short. I pay her, and I rack my chips and cash out. In this session for $750, out for a frustrating $420 for a total loss of $330 on the night. To say I was steamed up after that last hand is an understatement. You know, I guess it's Texas, so you love when people just play horrifically, and then you don't like it when they somehow get there. But I'm driving. I probably shouldn't even be doing this video right now, but I figured I'd want to give you a slight calm down reaction after I'm pretty pissed off at the way that last hand went down, and I figured it was time for me to go. It was getting late. But anyways, make sure to always check me out, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time.